Douglas, it is great to have you on the podcast today. I'm wondering if you could start by sharing with us how you got to be in AI. What's your background?
Well, my background is actually digital marketing. I have been involved with a number of agency startups in the agency world. Management buyout with George Patterson many years ago, and then set up with two others, The Works, a kind of integrated advertising agency. Held on to that till 2017, sold that to Capgemini. And we also set up, and this is really where I got a taste for AI, a kind of AI chatbot messenger business called On Message, where we did, and this is before ChatGPT, some very kind of what seems quite basic chatbots, and learned a lot and kind of that whet my appetite. So when, after we'd sold the business, I stayed on a while, and then 6 months ago set up ACAM, the Australian Centre for AI and Marketing, with three other co-founders. And really we're all about how can we really demystify AI to marketers, and how do we make sure that AI delivers a real dividend for marketing teams. So that's kind of what we're about.
Wow. And I imagine in marketing there's a bit of fear around AI.
Yes. I mean, I think all teams there's fear, but marketing is kind of like the canary in the coal mine. It's because a lot of the focus on the application of generative AI has been on video and graphics and copy. Marketing has been very much thrown into the deep end on AI. And we're just next week launching some research that's been a bit of a dipstick on how marketing teams are feeling. And what we see is a combination typically of the majority feeling cautious but excited. That's the typical majority in a marketing team. And then a minority of really negative. In fact, in every marketing team out of 60, there was a minority of negative people, and also a minority of people who didn't see AI as changing their job in any way. It was like 30%. So AI, in my view, is not about technology. It's about leadership, number one, and if you get the leadership right, the adoption of the technology will follow. And I fear that we're not getting it right.
Yeah. Wow. So what do we need to do in that space? How do we improve the leadership in this?
I think where you don't want, it's best to explain this by saying where you don't want to be. What we're seeing is CEOs of organizations saying, you know what, this AI thing, I can cut costs, and I'm going to say to each of my direct reports, you've got to lose $500,000 off your departmental P&L through the deployment of AI. And that's not where you want to be, because it's such a negative way to introduce this new technology. And you can be sure your people will be even more scared if that's the thing. But it is up to all of the leaders, the C-suite, the senior management in the business, to be on the front foot with the CEO and say, this is our plan. This is how we're going to deliver better ROI, better return on marketing investment as a result of deployment of AI. And, this is what the plan looks like. It is super important that you're not a passenger as a leader in a business. I think you need to be an advocate and a forward planner. Otherwise, you could get that phone call from the CEO just wanting cost cutting, and that's terrible, depressing.
It's depressing, but also it sounds like it's not very well informed.
No, look, it's not. It isn't. But unfortunately, some CEOs have incentives to get short-term return, and it's on paper a great way for short-term return. But this is so much bigger than just cost cutting. This is a technology that's creating new ways to work. It's creating new jobs and job titles. It's creating whole new enterprises. And there is a dark side to it. People will lose their jobs, but it will create a whole new set of opportunities. And if you don't look at it like that, you kind of fail, I think.
Oh, I mean, I'm still getting my head around AI. I do love it, and I do use it to do some copy. I write the copy and then I get it to help me improve my copy. But I'm just this small little cog. But I imagine in business, there are just so many ways in which it can be applied. And if we don't understand it, and it's changing so quickly, like how do you keep up to date with what it can do?
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary. It was just November 2022 that ChatGPT was launched. I mean, that is so recently. And yet, even, I mean, that platform alone has improved tenfold. And every day there's a new platform to learn. However, there is a kind of cycle of maturity for a company adopting AI. And the first bit is immaturity is everyone's going, oh, have you seen this platform and that platform? And I did this on ChatGPT, and oh, we need to do more of this, and we need to subscribe to more platforms. And then, like, everyone's running around doing things in silos, and that's fine. It gets some kind of experience on the tools, but actually what you need to do is take a top-down approach as well that says, okay, what are our business priorities? What do we want for our bottom line, our culture out of this? And actually use AI in the service of your business priorities rather than it just being a kind of, free-for-all of different use cases and stuff. And particularly my perspective is quite marketing centric, and marketing has been under a lot of pressure in the last few years with cost cutting, people needing to do more with less. But at the same time, marketing also has become mired in process, back-end process, stakeholder management in organizations. And the advent of AI actually should make marketers go, how can I do better marketing? How can I be a better marketer as a result of this? And this is a great opportunity to get rid of all that process, automate it, get it off, so you can focus on the customer, you can focus on delivering growth, you can focus on delivering a lower cost per sale. So it is exciting, for a lot of people if you have the right frame as a leadership team.
So in this space, then we're needing leadership, and not just marketers, but we're needing leadership, CEOs, people, decision makers, to be much better informed and aware of the capabilities and limitations or whatever of AI, so that we're making informed decisions.
Yes. And I think boards probably need to work a bit harder on AI, because if boards are helping to advise on growth and minimize risk, I feel that there are a lot of boards who haven't really grasped the AI opportunity. And either they skew into, oh, how do we manage this risk? Or they skew into, how can we save money? And I think boards need to learn more about the opportunity and what questions they should be asking of the leadership team.
Where do you ask AI to tell you more about AI? Like, is that,
Yeah.
how do you, yeah?
Absolutely. I get AI to check AI's homework. So if I'm writing, say I'm working with Perplexity, which is like ChatGPT, I'll create a piece of content, then I'll give it to ChatGPT and say, this was my brief to Perplexity. Can you assess it against these criteria? And so you'll have one, it's like adversarial networks. You'll have one AI assessing the other's work. It's really a great way to work, because they're always polite about the other platforms. So ChatGPT is, yes, Perplexity is a really good platform, but I have noticed these 5 things could be improved. So it's a very polite world, but it's a great way because you do get different perspectives from different platforms. So, and it's also reassuring that you're not making mistakes, because guess what? AI makes mistakes,
Yeah. Well, that is true. I do know a copywriter who got his team to get ChatGPT to create some copy for an award, and they basically made up the names of the they just changed things. They just created
Yes.
false information. It was just
Absolutely.
extraordinary.
It is. And that worries me, because if you become a slave to ChatGPT or whatever your platform of choice is, and you assume that it's correct, then that's so dangerous. Personally, I mean, it could change your political views, it could influence your thinking about the world, and that's dangerous if there's bias present. But professionally, you could be caught very short if the data's not right that you've been given. So particularly at this early stage, you've got to be super careful and manage that risk.
So, and I think that that's a really interesting point then. If we're relying on it so much, but we can't necessarily trust it.
Yeah, you can't. And I think the good thing is, where we're going on it is, when you get an answer from the best platforms, and Perplexity is very good at this. So you get an answer and it will have little tags in each paragraph showing the source material. And I would encourage people, when they get the answer, look back to the source material. Is it a good source, a reliable source, an unbiased source? And if it's credible, that's reassuring. So we will have more accountability in the system. But at this point in time, it makes mistakes. I regularly go, that's definitely not right. So, and people are getting relationship advice on ChatGPT. They're getting financial planning. They're putting their financial information into ChatGPT. They're just, and they're just, because it's magic, people just take the answer as true. It's like, oh, it's magic, it must be right. And it's not magic, it's a language model.
Yeah. It's a language model that drags information from the internet.
Yeah, completely.
Quickly.
Yes, totally.
Really quickly.
Yeah. And all the filth and bias that comes with the internet.
It's radical change. I mean, it's not it's Google searches on speed.
Yes, it is. And the pace of adoption is extraordinary. I think the PC and internet, after a year of the PC and a year of the internet, like there was 20% uptake. We've got like 45% uptake after a year of ChatGPT. So the pace is extraordinary, and people are using it personally at work at a much greater rate than companies realize, and that's good and bad, because most people, our research that we're launching shortly shows that the vast majority of people are self-taught. Then they haven't been given company training. And that's great for curiosity, big ticks, but also bad, because if you're not given kind of best practice, if you're not given the right structures and safeguards around it, that's not good.
Yeah.
So companies lag their employees, in my view.
I have heard HR managers say that now a priority is ensuring that your staff have a policy around access to AI.
And interestingly, we asked this question, this research that we've just done, about how many organizations have a risk and ethics framework. About half of them said they do. And then we asked what percentage of your staff understand and live and breathe that framework for ethics and risk management. And like only 8%, I think, said, yeah, our staff know all about it, understand it, live and breathe it. So it can't just be a box ticking exercise where you have risk and ethics. It's got to be something that everyone buys into and contributes to. And it probably is a living, breathing document, not just a one-off thing that the lawyers have done.
Oh, yeah. It has to be a living, breathing document, because it's going to change.
Yeah, completely. Every day is changing,
Yeah.
So
I think the world's exhausted from the rate of change, and AI's just increased that speed even more.
Yeah, completely. And whole careers are being upended. It used to be only a few years ago, if you were a coder, they were the kings and queens of the universe, and big salaries. And of course, we're rapidly getting to the point with no code and low code where the English language can do the coding, and the degree of difficulty of coding is dropping. So, people's lives and careers are being upended by this technology. So it creates AI anxiety.
Yeah. But as I constantly think, every conflict creates another opportunity. We've gone through radical change before. We introduced supermarkets.
Yes.
The sky didn't fall, and then checkout, all those things.
Absolutely. Right back to the Luddites, way back in history, they were cynical about it. And, the sky never fell in. But this is a big change, and I think we need to be ready for it. And my guess is not enough companies and not enough people are ready for it.
No.
They see it as something the IT department does.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So my understanding is that women are not embracing AI at the same rate that men are. So what are the implications of this?
Yeah, it's interesting, because of the four of us that founded the Australian Centre for AI Marketing, I'm the only bloke. I've set this up with four women. So I kind of assumed that women were adopting it at the same rate. But actually, the data and the research shows that Australian women are not. And I think because I think men are much quicker to trust anything in life than women, would be my guess. And if we look at the world of share trading, I've done quite a bit of work in that space on, those kind of apps where you can do share trading. By far more men trade shares than women, particularly young men. Women hold back. But interestingly, when women do jump in, once they trust the share trading platform, they actually get better performance because they're a much more considered investor. But they do hold back. And I kind of think about when I look at the data on women holding back versus men, both professionally and personally, with their adoption of AI. And I think women spend longer building trust than men. I think men go on the vibe of trust, whereas women are a bit more analytical. I don't know. Does that ring true with you?
Yeah, I think it does. Not always, not 100%, but I do think that women can. And I think maybe it's just a legacy issue as well. Like we just expect somebody to test it for us.
Yeah. I think so, but also AI has been created largely by men. There's only, I think, 18% of the people creating in California and China are those creators, those coders, those modelers are women. So only 18%.
Wow. Okay.
So, and there is a male bias in a lot of data, and I think probably the experience is a bit biased. It probably puts women off. But also, I think there's a sense, and I've noticed this with my wife, there's an embarrassment to using AI. There's like somehow it's cheating, that you're not, you're getting an unfair advantage. My guess is that women feel that a bit, whereas men kind of have lower values thresholds or something.
Well, if that plays true, I mean, you think about women entering the workforce, we're much less likely to apply for jobs that we're possibly qualified for, whereas men will sort of
Yes.
yeah, I've got this, I can do that.
Yes. And my pet hate is when very competent women say to me, I've got imposter syndrome. And I'm going, men don't go around saying I've got imposter syndrome. Stop saying that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You're an intelligent, smart, well-experienced person. Why would you say you feel an imposter on occasion? I hate that expression when people say.
But it could also be why we hold back on then using it.
Yeah.
And also, I don't really understand it. Like I play with it. I use it, and I've used it really effectively because I've been able to put some thoughts in there and get clarity and a framework around something that I struggled with before. And it's sort of like, this is gold. But I still know that there are other people who've really adapted it a lot better.
Yeah. And I think you don't need to become highly technical around how models work and language models work, but I think an appreciation of the basics of what's happening, because black boxes, in my view, are very dangerous things. We've seen this in the media industry where advertising's been sold in a black box. No one quite understands how it works. And sometimes people have been ripped off on that. And I think there's a real movement in California, particularly to have transparent AI, where people are more open about what's happening with the model, how the model is structured, what algorithms are doing, what the data is that's being used. And so I do think it's important that all of us have a basic understanding of what's going on so we can make choices, so that we can go, oh, actually, this is a biased response, or this is not working for me, as opposed to just accepting the answer. So I think it's good to have a basic understanding so you can ask good quality questions of the experts.
I think that's really important. The transparency is really important. And I think we were talking before we came on about social media and that loss of control. This is AI is moving so fast. How do we have control over how big and broad it gets, and how internationally? Like, we're not very good at managing these things internationally.
Yeah, I'm involved with what's grandly called a think tank. looks at the question of our young people who are growing up using generative AI and what impact that will have on the rational side of the brain for their cognitive ability, and then for the emotional side of their brain, their attitudes, their emotions, how is that going to change? And there is a lot of work starting to be done in this space. But what's really important is that everyone has an understanding of the dangers. Like, we've got an understanding of the dangers of spending too long on the beach. You can get a melanoma or bad things happen. And I think we need to have a similar level of understanding with young people. I think it needs to be taught in school, not just how to use generative AI constructively, but what the dangers are. And I think there is talk of it being taught in school. And I personally think that's really important, but there has to be an ethical lens to that, for sure.
Yes, it's such an interesting space because, and I imagine it's going to be a little bit like, how do we stop children using social media? It's lovely to have a ban, but what does that really look like going forward?
I don't think a ban's going to work. I can't think of any child that's not going to, we're going to take their phones away from them. Are we going to delete the apps? There's not many parents I know that are willing to do that.
It's going to be an interesting thing. I wonder whether it's going to be like smoking, where eventually it just becomes like, we don't smoke anymore. We don't let children look at social media. But that takes time.
Yeah.
To change those norms.
Yeah, absolutely. I sometimes think that we don't spend enough time telling our kids how our brains work and our emotions and the chemicals of our brain and the mechanics of our brain. Because I think once you understand what anxiety looks like, what, depression looks like, what joy looks like, to understand it, it's a technical thing that's happening in your brain. It's not some made up thing. I think if you understand that, you can actually start to take a view of social media and AI, because you kind of connect it with the physics of your brain.
Yeah. We have AI, we start implementing it into our business. How do we know if we're doing it well? Like, how do you measure this?
Yeah, it's a good point. There's at least 7 dimensions that you can measure the deployment of it. And in fact, we're launching this research that we've just done, the first kind of maturity curve of, in our case, marketing teams in Australia. And we're doing it very simply. It's beginner, intermediate, and advanced category. We use 7 different criteria just so people can start to say, am I ready? Am I AI ready? Because when you talk to C-suite people, they ask 3 questions every time. It's scary. They go, number 1, is my team ready for AI? Number 2, is my business or marketing plan AI match fit? And the third one is, am I as a leader AI ready? And they all say, particularly they say, it's kind of refreshing that they say that, because it shows they're happy to be vulnerable. And those 3 questions are really important questions. And I think if you start to build some structure around that, you can measure progress. But there is anyone who says they're an expert in AI, send them straight out of the room, please, because at this point in the cycle, we are all enthusiastic, curious amateurs, because we are just in the very first few moments of this revolution. And if you think you're an expert, you've probably given up learning and experimenting and being curious. So I hate people calling themselves experts in this area. But it's really important to get out there and experiment and be curious, no matter what age you are, because as you get older, as you know, we get less curious. We get stuck in our ways and we stop asking questions and we lean into our prejudices and everything that's baked into our brain. And particularly mid-career people or later career people, it's so important to be curious. And people struggle with that because they just don't find time to do it.
No, and you won't know the answer to this, but I heard recently that when AI started, it couldn't beat a grandmaster at chess. But apparently now it can.
Yes. Yeah.
Is AI going to destroy us?
Look, I think I'm an optimist, but there are a couple of signals that worry me. So a number of the AI platforms set up as kind of almost like not-for-profits. So, and now they're slightly crab walking away from that. So there's one that said they were going to be highly ethical and just use this for the good of humanity. And now they're selling their platform to the US Army.
Nice.
And ChatGPT is, I think, changing its status away from a charitable organization to being a commercial organization. Can't quite remember the legals. So there is a bit of a crab walk away from good for humanity that slightly worries me. But the big thing that's yet to come is general intelligence, because at the moment, AI is deployed in quite specific use cases, and these intelligent agents have human-like reasoning within a narrow remit for a particular use case, and they're very good at one thing. But what we're seeing now is all these intelligent agents are starting to work together to do things. And they each have their own little specialization. But general intelligence will sit over that, which is close to a sentient being, where somebody can do multiple tasks, organize all those different individual intelligent agents and the tasks they're good at. And that's the point where it starts to get really quite serious, because you've got somebody who can truly think independently like a human.
Yeah. Wow. So bringing it back to marketing, marketing's all about storytelling. And I recently heard that, Elon Musk said we didn't need actors because we can just get, AI to create story. But it seems to me that that's a false narrative, that humans love story, and they love the vulnerability of the way in which we tell story. Does that resonate with you?
I think so. In the world of advertising, we're about emotions, because emotion sells. No matter whether it's toilet paper or the iPhone, emotion sells.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that AI and human combination, AI working with human, can reach new levels of emotional engagement, both in terms of the creative work, because what we did in my last company is we said, our creative team, stage one, give the creative brief for a particular campaign to ChatGPT, and it'll come back with a bunch of pretty good ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Now your job is to beat those ideas, because those ideas that ChatGPT have come up with are based on everything that's gone before, all the other ads in the category, and they're derivative. Whereas if you get that, put that on the table, and they'll be perfectly good ads, but they'll be derivative category, kind of, maybe a little bit boring, and beat it. And I think if you have this competition to come up with better and better ideas that drive better emotion, that's kind of interesting.
That's cool. I like that. That's beat the machine.
Yeah, beat the machine. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for this conversation. I've really enjoyed talking to you, Douglas, about this. This is such an important space for us to explore.
Absolutely. And if anyone's interested in that research, it'll be published July the 1st, 2025. You just go to ACAM, ACAM.ai, and you'll be able to download it if you're interested about how Australian marketing teams are responding to AI.
No, that's fantastic. And I also think the leadership issue around, get your head around this and take it seriously and have a policy, but do more than that.
Yeah. Lead by example.
Yeah.
Is super important, and not all leaders are leading by example. They see it as somebody else's job, and it cannot be. This is too important.
Yeah, it's too important. Thank you very much.